The blazing desert sun glared down without mercy on the tiny town of Oak Ridge. Jack Marston squinted against the shimmering waves of heat rippling up from the cracked asphalt of Main Street. He pulled his sweat-stained cowboy hat lower over his brow as he made his way up the weathered wooden steps to Millie's diner. Jack pushed through the heavy glass door, his entrance announced by a little jingle of bells. A rush of blessed cold air from the diner's groaning air conditioning unit washed over him. He shrugged off his dusty denim jacket and settled into his usual cracked vinyl stool at the battered Formica counter. "Hey there, sugar," Millie drawled, in a voice roughened by decades of smoking. The heavyset woman dried a mug with a stained rag as she regarded Jack through her cat-eye glasses. "The usual. You know it, darling," Jack replied with a weary smile. These morning rituals at Millie's were about the only constants in his life lately. As the acrid pot of diner coffee gurgled and brewed, Jack's eyes strayed to the battered old television mounted in the corner. The local news was on, but the sound was down low. He could make out shots of nearby Coyote Ridge, where a series of mysterious wildfires had sparked up recently, despite the bone-dry conditions. "You catch that, Millie?" Jack nodded towards the TV. "More of them weird fires up in the ridges." Millie shrugged her broad shoulders as she set a steaming mug of black coffee down in front of him. "Could just be kids messing around where they shouldn't." "I dunno." Jack frowned, wrapping his calloused hands around the warm ceramic mug. "Place has been going a little haywire lately, if you ask me." He was referring to the strange phenomena that had been disrupting life in their remote desert town over the past few months. Aside from the fires blazing up out of nowhere, there had been the power outages, the blown electrical transformers, and folks' cell phones and radios randomly going haywire. Just last week, Oak Ridge's lone drinking well had run permanently dry, despite the aquifer below having shown no signs of depletion. At first, the residents of the tiny desert community brushed it off as just a freakish run of bad luck and failing infrastructure. But as the weirdness kept mounting, even the most level-headed folks were starting to wonder if something wasn't seriously wrong. "And did you hear the Henderson's boy Jimmy saying he saw some kind of lights in the sky the other night?" Millie asked, topping off Jack's mug from the pot. "Like shooting stars or whatnot." Jack took a long pull of the piping hot, slightly burnt-tasting coffee. It was just how he liked it. "Hell, I don't know what to make of it myself," he admitted with a sigh. Lately he felt like a boat slowly adrift, catching flashes of something massive and inexplicable lurking just out of sight beneath the surface. "It's getting hard to chalk it all up to coincidence anymore." Little did Jack or anyone else in Oak Ridge realize, the mysterious phenomena were actually the first hints that there were catastrophic malfunctions occurring within the fabric of their intricately simulated environment. For the harsh truth was that Oak Ridge and the vast desert valley it called home were nothing more than an elaborate museum exhibit, a living diorama created by an unimaginably advanced alien race from the cosmos. Every tiny detail of the town and its surroundings, including the craggy mesas, the vaulting sky, and even the sagebrush dotting the dusty flats, were artificial simulations, fueled by immense computational power and trickles of data. Everything that Jack and the other fooled residents of Oak Ridge thought they knew about their world was nothing more than an intricate shared delusion, one manipulated and directed by the unseen curator race from the stars. The aliens from a distant world had created Oak Ridge and populated it with real humans as a sort of living museum, a functional model of a small human desert community frozen in time. The town's true purpose was a zoo-like anthropological display where researchers from the alien civilization could study the strange territorial primates known as humans in intimate detail. Every structure, person, cloud, tumbleweed, and bird call was all meticulously rendered down to the subatomic level. Hidden throughout the artificial environment were arrays of advanced sensors recording and monitoring every tiny nuance of activity in excruciating detail. Ever since they had discovered the primitive radio emissions of human civilization leaking across the stars. The aliens had grown intensely curious to examine one of Earth's isolated communities up close in a naturalistic yet controlled setting. Of course, the human residents of Oak Ridge themselves had no inkling of their status as captives in an advanced alien vivarium. As far as Jack Marston and the others were concerned, their sleepy desert town was simply one among countless other tiny specks of civilization scattered across the vast American Southwest. From their perspective, everything seemed completely normal and mundane, just a sparse valley in the desert where life went on much as it had for generations. Families raised kids and scraped out hardscrabble livings through ranching or mining the scrubby hills for ore. Passing strangers might occasionally wander through town, but for the most part, the people of Oak Ridge existed in nearly total isolation from the outside world. It was exactly the kind of insular, timeless setting the aliens hoped to recreate in creating their little human terrarium. Of course, no simulation could remain perfect and stable indefinitely. Even with their staggering aptitude for technology and quantum physics, the cosmic overseers of Oak Ridge had limitations in maintaining their elaborate ruse. At first, only the subtlest of errors began creeping into their meticulous simulation of Oak Ridge's arid pocket dimension. There were glitches in the day-night cycles that were barely perceptible to the humans below. Certain species of wildlife wandered outside their prescribed simulated habitats. Atmospheric conditions would sporadically fluctuate beyond normal acceptable parameters before self-correcting, but inevitably, the flaws compounded. It became harder to mask the escalating malfunction cascade from the oblivious human populace when trees began spontaneously combusting and the aquifer sputtered dry. Yet the final unraveling of the Oak Ridge masquerade came via a decidedly low-tech and innocuous source. Ironically, it wasn't any scientists or engineers among the humans who first pierced the veil of their artificial reality, but an inquisitive 10-year-old boy. Young Tommy Wilkins had always been a dreamer, staring up at the stars and wondering what incredible cosmic marvels lay beyond the confinements of Oak Ridge's dusty horizon. His vivid imagination was always conjuring elaborate theories about aliens, space travel, and the unseen mysteries of the cosmos that the dry schoolbooks barely touched upon. So when strange dancing lights appeared flickering across the dusk skyline one chilly October evening, Tommy's sense of childlike wonder deepened into an insatiable quest to solve the mystery behind the otherworldly lights nobody else seemed able to explain away. Each night for weeks, he snuck out of his bedroom window with his prized telescope to scan the horizon for the bizarre glowing specters arcing and pirouetting across the firmament. He began meticulously charting their movements, trajectories, and behaviors with an almost obsessive zeal. Finally, after many sleepless nights of tireless observation, 10-year-old Tommy reached a stunning conclusion. The lights weren't celestial phenomena at all. They were intelligently controlled, almost like the running lights of stupendously huge vehicles or craft of some kind traveling outside the town's borders. But even Tommy's overactive imagination couldn't concoct what these purported lights or vehicles truly were. Gigantic machines continuously projecting and refreshing the artificial sky and stars that Oak Ridge's humans saw overhead each night. Those flickering running lights were simply the astronomical simulators recalibrating and realigning themselves within the vast dome of the museum exhibit. To young Tommy, it was nothing short of a paradigm-shattering epiphany that turned his entire reality inside out. Hard as it was to process for his tender young mind, he was convinced it could only mean one thing. The town of Oak Ridge, its desert valley, and everything else in sight were all one intricately constructed hoax crafted by powerful unseen hands. Of course, Tommy's wild claims about their hometown being an artificial zoo exhibit created by mysterious sky beings from the stars was met with derision and disbelief from his parents, teachers, and other adults. Who could blame them for dismissing the boy's stories as overactive childhood fantasies at first? But as uncanny coincidence piled upon uncanny coincidence, even the most level-headed people in Oakridge began questioning the nature of their surroundings. The signs were too bizarre to keep ignoring. Jack Marston, like others in the isolated town, began keeping a wary eye on the implausible events unfolding around them. As a rational, grounded man, part of him wanted to dismiss it all as a run of bad luck, lies, and mass hallucination. Yet, the more Jack observed, the more he realized a gut feeling of wrongness creeping in. It started small, just a vague dissonance picking at the back of his mind until he could no longer ignore it. Like a cowboy in an old western spotting distant smoke on the horizon, Jack felt that unmistakable instinctual twinge warning of some sinister unknown threat encroaching. Even mundane tasks, like milking his retired cattle or chopping winter firewood, felt tainted somehow. There was a growing sense of artifice to Oakridge's previously sturdy reality. It was as if Jack had stumbled upon the edges of a cheap Hollywood film set facade and glimpsed the scaffolding and rigging animating a simulated town. Minor quirks and hiccups rapidly cascaded into glaring tears in reality itself. Birds would occasionally freeze unnaturally in mid-air or repeat looped flight patterns. The same vehicles would pass by on the distant highway time and again, like pieces clicked back into their starting positions on a board game. At one point, Jack swore he even noticed faint puckered seams visible in the amber glow of dawn's first light, almost like the entire sky itself was simply a massive arced display panel of some kind. It all built towards an unshakable revelation that bent and shattered Jack's conception of rationality and normalcy. He and everyone in Oakridge were trapped inside a simulation, an artificial construct manufactured by some powerful and unknowable outside force. When the final veil dropped, the truth proved as horrifying and disorienting as Jack's addled mind could handle. Massive ruby-red hovering craft, each easily miles across, materialized in a blinding stratospheric flash above the cloudless sky that fateful day. In that frozen moment, everything the residents of Oakridge had once accepted as concrete reality was peeled away like a shed rhinoceros skin. The endless vault of turquoise sky above shattered like a broken mock-up, chunks of painted drywall crumbling away to reveal banks of strange curvilinear collectors and panels. As the last vestiges of the simulation collapsed, every tree, mesa, cactus, and rusted windmill liquefied into staticky, pixelated clouds of silvery particles that streamed away into nothingness. The sudden implosion of their once tangible environment revealed the harsh void of an alien environment. The residents of Oakridge found themselves standing upon a flat metallic platform suspended in the middle of an endless hangar-like receiving bay. Monolithic alien machinery, bristling with panels and conduits, loomed hundreds of feet overhead in every direction. The true scale of their synthetic prison was almost too immense to be grasped. Wave after wave of those gargantuan ruby ships flickered into view above like the petals of an apocalyptic cosmic bloom, their hulls glinting with alien circumfluence. Wave after dizzying wave of them unspooled silently into reality, surrounding the now utterly exposed human settlement. In that frozen instant, Jack and everyone else in Oakridge finally understood young Tommy Wilkins' warnings about their world being nothing more than a convolutedly constructed lie. But this shocking truth didn't bring the awestruck wonder one might have imagined witnessing first contact with profound alien intelligence. Instead, Jack and the others experienced only a kaleidoscope of terror, grief, betrayal, and utter existential sickness. Their minds rocked by the revelation that everything they had ever taken for truth was false. The shattered humans became subjugated prey, awaiting their unknown fates at the hands of their newly arrived captors. Muted screams and keening cries erupted from the crowd as they gibbered in madness, clawing at the entities they had once trusted as their son and god. Jack was unmade in that moment, his rugged cowboy psyche dissolving in a sluice of horror at the unraveling of all verities. He stared up into the inscrutable alien vessel's lights, understanding for the first time that he was but another curiosity in some collector's vault, a mounted butterfly, pinned and dissected for study. Their world, their very existence, had been the knowingly deluded fantasy of an ultra-cosmic zookeeper race from far shores unknown. Rage, shock, and mortal insignificance washed over Jack in that cosmic instant of horrific apotheosis. He prayed for the sweet blessing of madness to unknow the awful truth that Oakridge and all it had once represented were nothing more than a scrapbook exhibition in a museum of obscenities.